The night was quiet, too quiet for his liking. The old man sat on the wooden steps of his small cabin, staring at the dark trees that surrounded him. He lived alone, far from the town, far from the noise of people. That was how he liked it. But tonight, something felt wrong. The air carried a strange sound, soft, broken cries, almost like a child sobbing in the distance. He froze. A human child could not be out here, not this deep in the forest. His cabin was miles from the nearest road. Still, the sound returned, weak and desperate, and it pulled at something deep inside him. He stood, grabbing the old lantern from his table, and stepped into the night. The forest was dark, alive with shadows. Every branch that cracked under his boots made him tense. He had lived in silence for years, but this sound, this cry, would not leave his chest alone. It was not just noise. It was pain. Then he saw it. At first, he thought it was a child, small and curled against the roots of a tree. But when the lantern's light touched the figure, his breath caught. It was no human child. Its skin shimmered faint blue under the lantern glow. Its eyes were large, silver, glowing faintly in the darkness. Strange symbols moved slowly along its arms, glowing and fading like whispers of fire. He should have run. He knew the story's strange sightings, strange beings falling from the stars. People whispered about dangerous visitors. Some believed. Some laughed. But now he stood face to face with something real, something broken, something bleeding. The alien child was injured. Its side was torn, blood thick and darker than human blood dripped onto the ground. Its breathing was shallow, weak. He stepped closer, and the child's eyes widened in fear. It tried to crawl away, but its strength was gone. He knelt slowly, raising both hands to show he meant no harm. "Easy," he whispered, though he knew it would not understand his words. Still, he could not walk away. The wound was too deep, the fear too sharp. Then the sound came. Heavy steps, breaking branches, moving fast through the trees. He turned his head. Shadows shifted between the trunks. More were coming. Whoever they were hunting the child. His heart pounded. He had no weapon except an old hunting knife. But something inside him, something he thought had died long ago, rose again. He could not let them take the child. He could not leave it here to die. The first attacker leaped from the shadows. Tall and armored in dark plates, eyes burning red under a helmet. Without thinking, the man pushed the child behind him. The alien soldier struck, but he blocked with his arm. Pain exploded as the blade cut deep into his skin. Blood ran down his hand, warm and fast. He fought like a cornered animal, knife flashing, lantern swinging. Every blow cost him blood, but he did not fall. He bled, but he did not stop. Behind him, the child cried, glowing brighter. The symbols on its body pulsing with strange light. Two soldiers moved back into the trees, leaving one on the ground, motionless. The man's breath was ragged, his vision spinning. His arm dripped red, his knife trembling in his grip. He knew he could not fight more. Not like this. He turned, lifted the child in his arms. It was lighter than it looked, its body shaking, its glowing eyes staring into his. For one brief moment, he thought he saw something in those eyes. Trust. Not human words, not speech, but something clear. "Thank you." He stumbled through the forest, holding the child close, bleeding with every step. The night was endless, but somehow he reached the cabin again. He shut the door, locked it, and fell to his knees. The child still in his arms. The room was silent except for his rough breathing, and the faint hum of light from the child's skin. He pressed a cloth against his wound, teeth clenched against the pain. The child reached out, touching his hand. For a moment, he thought the pain lessened. Or maybe it was just his mind. Above the cabin, through the small window, the stars seemed to shift. He did not know it yet, but someone or something was watching. His blood was not the only mark left tonight, and outside, far beyond the forest, a new hunt had already begun. The man did not sleep that night. He sat in his chair near the fire, his wounded arm wrapped in cloth, his eyes fixed on the small alien child lying on his old couch. The child's body glowed faintly in the dark, the strange markings on its skin shifting like ripples of water. Every time the fire cracked, the light from the child seemed to pulse in answer. He had no idea what it meant, but he could not look away. The child was not human. Yet something about its face reminded him of the human children he once saw in the town, laughing and running. This one was silent now, breathing softly, fragile and broken. He remembered how it had clung to him when the soldiers came, how its eyes had looked at him with desperate trust. It had chosen him. But why? He was no hero. He was just a lonely man with scars, living far from everyone else. His mind spun with questions. Who were those soldiers? Why were they after this child? And why did he, of all people, decide to fight them? He had sworn to himself never to care again, never to let anyone close after he lost his own family years ago. Yet here he was, bleeding for a stranger from the stars by dawn. The child stirred. Its glowing silver eyes opened slowly. For a moment it looked afraid, but then it saw him sitting there, tired and pale. Its hand reached out weakly, touching his wounded arm. The symbols on its skin flared with light, and for a second, warmth spread through his body. The pain in his arm dulled just a little. He stared in shock. "You can heal?" he whispered, though he knew the child could not understand. The child only blinked at him, then whispered one word in a broken, trembling voice. "Home." The man froze. The sound was faint, but it was clear. The child had spoken in his tongue. His heart pounded. This was no wild beast or mindless creature it understood. It wanted to go home. But where was home? Up in the stars. Beyond the forest. And what if those armored hunters were its people? Were they searching to save it? Or to kill it? He stood and moved to the window, pulling the curtain aside. The morning light revealed the forest, calm and silent. But he could not shake the memory of heavy footsteps outside his door. He had survived one attack, but he knew more would come. His cabin was not strong enough to protect them forever. He turned back. The child was sitting up now, its small hands pressed against the wooden wall. Lines of glowing symbols appeared where its fingers touched, burning faintly before fading again. The man's throat tightened. It was leaving marks in his home. But were they warnings or messages? The child looked at him with wide, frightened eyes. "Come," it whispered, its voice broken and weak. His stomach dropped. It had barely survived, and yet it was warning him. Whoever they were not far. He moved quickly, pulling down an old rifle from the wall, checking its rusted barrel. He had not used it in years, but it was all he had. He pushed the heavy dresser against the door, then dragged crates to block the windows. The cabin, once his quiet refuge, was turning into a prison. Hours passed in tense silence. The child rested, though its body glowed brighter whenever fear touched it. Sometimes it whispered words he did not understand, sounds that echoed with power, like a prayer or a chant. Other times it simply stared at him, as if studying his face, memorizing it. He tried to ignore the strange feeling in his chest. Caring was dangerous. Caring meant loss. But every time the child's eyes found his, he felt something crack inside him. He had sworn never to love again, yet this small, fragile being was breaking down the walls he had built for years. The sun began to set. Shadows stretched long across the cabin floor. He sat near the fire again, his rifle across his knees. The child was curled in a blanket, glowing faintly like a lantern in the dark. The forest outside was too quiet, the silence pressing heavy against the walls. Then came the sound. A faint scrape. A footstep on leaves. Then another. The man's body stiffened. He raised the rifle, his breath sharp. The child's symbols flared suddenly, bright enough to light the room. The man's heart pounded in his chest. Someone was outside the window. He turned his head slowly and saw the shadow of a figure moving against the curtain. Too tall, too still, too silent to be a simple traveler. The child whispered again, trembling. "They, here." The man's finger tightened on the rifle trigger. He felt the weight of choice crushing him. Protect the child again, bleed for it again, more surrender, and hope for mercy. Before he could decide, the door creaked. Something heavy pressed against it, shaking the wood. The cabin groaned under the pressure. The man raised his weapon. His blood turned cold. The hunters had found them. The wooden door rattled under the weight of unseen hands. The man's grip on the rifle tightened, sweat sliding down his forehead. His breath came slow and heavy, every muscle ready to break. The alien child sat wrapped in the blanket, glowing brighter as fear rose inside it. The strange symbols on its skin flared like fire, casting shadows across the cabin walls. For a long moment, there was silence. Then the sound came slow, dragging footsteps circling the cabin. The floorboards creaked as he shifted his stance. He aimed at the door, but the noise moved to the window, then to the far wall. Whoever was outside was not rushing. They were watching. The child whimpered softly, curling smaller into the blanket. Its silver eyes locked on the window, wide with fear. Then, to his shock, it pressed its glowing hand to the wooden wall again. Strange marks appeared, sharp lines and curves, glowing faintly. He stepped closer and froze. The marks weren't random. They were words. He couldn't read them, but he could feel them, as if the symbols hummed in his bones. The glow spread across the wall, and for a moment, he thought he heard whispers, low voices, speaking a language he couldn't understand. His skin prickled. "Stop," he hissed, pulling the child's hand away. The glow faded, but the whispers echoed in his ears even after the marks disappeared. He didn't know what the child had written, but he was sure it was calling something. The footsteps outside paused. Then, slowly, a shadow passed across the window. He raised the rifle, but when the figure moved away again, he lowered it slightly, heart pounding. He had fought before, but this was a game of waiting. A hunt the night dragged on. Hours felt like years. The child drifted in and out of restless sleep, whispering in its strange tongue. Sometimes the whispers seemed to crawl into his head. He shook them away, but the more he listened, the more familiar they felt. It was as if the child's words were shaping themselves into meaning by dawn. Exhaustion pressed heavy on him, but his mind refused rest. He dozed for a moment, only to wake with a jolt. His eyes went to the wall. His breath caught. The glowing marks had returned. Only this time he hadn't seen the child move. They stretched across the wooden boards, brighter, clearer. And in his tired mind, he suddenly understood one word: danger. He staggered back, rifle clattering against the floor. The child sat silently, eyes half closed, as if it had nothing to do with the warning. But he knew. The child was speaking through the walls, through the whispers in his skull. He rubbed his temples, his chest heavy. What was this child? A victim? Or something far more dangerous than the soldiers outside? His thoughts shattered when the door creaked again. This time, the sound was softer. A careful hand testing the latch. He raised his rifle and aimed. His heartbeat roared in his ears. The latch moved, just slightly. Then silence. He held his breath, waiting. Minutes passed like an eternity, and still nothing came. Finally, he lowered the gun, only for a sharp knock to explode against the door. The child cried out, glowing like a beacon. The symbols across its body flared so bright the whole room glowed white for a heartbeat. The man stumbled, shielding his eyes. When the light dimmed, he saw something new. The wall behind the child now carried not just one word, but a sentence. The glowing marks swirled into a shape he could almost read. And in his mind, he heard a whisper, soft and clear, as if spoken into his ear. "They're not alone." His blood froze. More were coming. Not just the soldiers. Others he turned to the window, searching the tree line. At first, he saw only fog and shadows. Then movement a second group approaching, their shapes leaner, faster, different from the armored ones. Two sides hunting the same child. The man's chest tightened. He could fight one group, maybe, but two? His cabin would fall like paper. He looked down at the child. It stared back, trembling, silver eyes shining with tears. In that moment, he understood. The child was more than lost. It was the center of something greater, a war, a power struggle he did not belong in. And yet, fate had dragged him into it. The knock came again. Harder, louder. He raised his rifle, but doubt filled him. If he opened that door, he didn't know what he would see, friend or foe. The whispers grew louder in his head. The symbols on the wall burning brighter. He pressed his hands to his ears, trying to shut them out. But the child suddenly cried, one word in a broken voice that shook the room. "Father." His heart stopped. For a breathless second, he thought he misheard. But the child's glowing eyes locked on his, full of desperate trust. The word was clear. It had chosen him. The door banged again, shaking under the force. The walls glowed with warnings. His blood ran cold, his rifle steady in his hands. Outside, two armies were closing in. Inside, the child had claimed him as family, and in the silence before the storm, he knew one truth: there was no turning back. The pounding on the door shook the cabin like thunder. Dust rained down from the ceiling, and the old man's knuckles turned white as he held the rifle steady. The alien child sat on the couch, wrapped in the blanket, glowing so bright that the walls shone like lanterns. The symbols crawled across its skin faster now, like living fire. He could not breathe. Every second felt stretched so far it might snap. Whoever was outside was strong. They could break down the door at any moment, but they hadn't, not yet. Instead, they waited, testing him. "Stay quiet," he whispered to the child. But it didn't move. Its silver eyes stared at the door with unblinking terror. The wood groaned again. Then the door slowly opened. Not shattered, not kicked apart, but pushed, carefully, with a hand. A tall figure stepped into the cabin, its body covered in silver armor that shimmered like moonlight. Behind it, two more followed. The man raised the rifle, finger tight on the trigger. "Stay back," he shouted, his voice breaking. The armored figures stopped. The lead one raised its hands slowly, palms out, showing it carried no weapon. Its helmet split open with a hiss, revealing a face beneath. The man's breath caught. The face was alien, yes, but not monstrous. Its skin was pale blue, its eyes sharp and glowing faintly gold. Its features were stern but calm, almost human in their shape. It looked at him, then at the child. And then it did something he never expected. It knelt. The second and third armored figures lowered themselves too, bowing their heads toward the child. The cabin glowed brighter as the child's markings flared in response. The old man stared in disbelief, lowering his rifle just an inch. The kneeling figure spoke. Its voice deep and strange, but carrying a strange weight. "Protector," it said in broken human tongue. "Protector of the air." The word struck him like a blow. Protector. He was no protector. He was just a man who stumbled into something too big. Yet, the way the alien's golden eyes looked at him, steady and reverent, made his chest tighten. He glanced at the child. It was trembling, clutching the blanket tighter, but its glowing eyes softened when they met his. He could see it now, the truth hidden in its gaze. This was no ordinary child. It was royalty. The man swallowed hard, his voice rough. Ere the alien nodded once. Blood of the throne, lost, hunted. The words echoed in the cabin like thunder. Blood of the throne. A child of rulers, of power. That explained the hunters, the fear, the light. He felt dizzy. He had not just saved a child, he had saved an heir to an empire. But if that was true, then who hunted them? Why had armored soldiers tried to kill the child instead of protect it? As if sensing his thoughts, the kneeling alien's face darkened. Not all loyal, it said slowly. Some betray. The old man's stomach sank. Even within its own kind, the child was not safe. The hunters were not strangers. They were traitors. The child whimpered softly, its voice thin. Home. The alien's gaze softened as it turned to the child, bowing lower. Yes, heir. Home. But the man felt his chest tighten again. He had seen the child's fear when those soldiers came. He had seen its terror when footsteps circled the cabin. The child didn't trust easily. Yet it clung to him, not them. Its small hand grabbed his bloodied arm. Holding on like it would never let go, the alien leader stood slowly, tilting its head toward him. Protector, give us the air. The man's breath caught. The child pressed closer against him, trembling. Its glowing eyes locked onto his, pleading without words. He could feel it through that gaze. It didn't want to go. He tightened his grip on the rifle, though he didn't raise it yet. His heart hammered in his chest. What if handing the child over meant sending it straight to its enemies? Could he risk it? Silence pressed down heavy on the cabin. The aliens did not move, their golden eyes waiting. The child shook, its glowing markings flaring wildly. Then he noticed something. One of the aliens behind the leader shifted its stance, just slightly. Its hand rested too close to its weapon, fingers twitching with impatience. For a second, the firelight caught the blade at its hip, stained. Dark stains, his blood froze. He remembered the night in the forest, the blade that cut him, dripping with thick, alien blood. That stain looked the same. His stomach churned. Were these aliens truly protectors? Or was at least one of them a traitor hiding behind a bow? The child seemed to sense it too. It pressed its face into his side, glowing brighter in fear. The man lifted the rifle fully now, pointing it between the aliens. His voice was hard, though his body shook. No one takes him. The leader blinked, tilting its head, confused. Protector, not until I know the truth, he snapped. The air in the cabin grew heavy. The aliens stood still, tension crackling like fire between them. The child clung tighter, whispering one word that burned into his soul. Stay. The man's finger tightened on the trigger. The night was not over. The cabin felt smaller than ever. The fire popped softly in the hearth, but its warmth did nothing against the cold silence pressing in. The man stood with his rifle raised, his eyes shifting between the armored visitors. The child clung to his side, glowing brighter. Trembling with every breath, the leader of the aliens, tall and calm, did not move. Its golden eyes stayed fixed on the man, steady and unreadable. Behind it, the two others stood in stillness. Yet the man's heart hammered because he had seen it. One of them had a weapon stained with blood. The same dark blood he had seen dripping in the forest. He had no proof, no way to explain it. But deep inside, he trusted his gut. One of these so-called protectors had tried to kill the child before. Protector. The leader said slowly, Its voice deep, heavy, struggling to shape human words. "We take air. Safe. Promise." The man barked a bitter laugh, though his voice was hoarse from fear and anger. "Promise. I've heard promises before. They end in graves." The alien tilted its head, puzzled. But the child pressed closer against him, whispering, "No, no, stay." The man's chest ached. He had sworn long ago never to care, never to hold anyone close again. But this small being, this air, this glowing child had shattered that vow. It looked at him with trust he didn't deserve, calling him protector, even calling him father. He could not betray that. The leader took a slow step forward. The man raised the rifle higher, finger tight on the trigger. The air grew sharp, like the crack before lightning. "I said stop," the man hissed. The leader froze. Behind it, the soldier with the stained blade shifted again, its hand brushing the weapon's hilt. The man's eyes narrowed. He was sure of it now. That one was no protector. That one wanted blood, but how could he prove it? If he fired now, would the others attack? If he waited, would the traitor strike first? His mind spun, his breath heavy. This was not a fight of strength alone. This was a choice, a test. Whom could he trust? Could he trust anyone at all? The child suddenly lifted its head, its eyes glowing silver bright. Its trembling voice whispered one broken word. "Lies." The man stiffened. The child could sense it too. One of them lied. His heart pounded. He lowered the rifle slightly, not in surrender, but in focus. His voice cut the silence. "If you're here to protect this child, then prove it. Swear on whatever you believe in. Swear that you would die before you harm him." The leader's golden eyes glowed faintly brighter. It bowed its head slowly. "Swear. Life for air. Always." The soldier beside it copied the motion, bowing low. But the third one, the one with the stained blade, hesitated. Its head dipped only slightly, its golden eyes narrowing as if the words stuck in its throat. The man saw enough. His instincts screamed. In one motion, he swung the rifle toward the traitor. You've bled before. I've seen your blade. You're no protector." The room froze. The traitor's hand snapped to its weapon, but the man fired first. The crack of the rifle shattered the cabin's silence. The shot slammed into the alien's armor, knocking it back into the wall. The child screamed, glowing so bright the cabin flashed white. The leader roared, rushing forward, not at the man, but at the traitor. In a blur, alien steel clashed, sparks flying as the two armored beings fought inside the small cabin. The walls shook under the force. Furniture splintering. The man grabbed the child and pulled it back, shielding it with his body. He had made his choice. He would not give the air to anyone until he knew the truth. If that meant bleeding again, so be it. The traitor swung wildly, its blade slashing through wood and firelight. The leader blocked, pushing it back, shouting words the man could not understand. The third alien joined the fight, helping to pin the traitor down. Finally, with a roar, the traitor was thrown against the wall, armor cracked, helmet splitting open. The man saw its face, then twisted with hate, eyes burning red instead of gold. A betrayer, corrupted, no longer loyal. The leader's golden eyes turned to the man, fierce but clear. "You see? Not all same. Some betray. Some protect." The man nodded slowly, though his rifle was still raised. He trusted no one fully, but he saw now that the child's enemies were not only outside. They were among its own people. The child pressed its face into his chest, whispering weakly, "Safe with you." The man's throat tightened. He had been given a choice and he had made it. He would protect the air, no matter the cost. The leader looked at him, bowing its head again. Protector, you decide. Trust or fight. But air must live. The cabin was in ruins, smoke rising from shattered wood, the smell of blood in the air. But inside, the man stood firm, the glowing child in his arms. The choice was clear. He would not hand the child over. Not yet. Not until he knew who was truly worthy of trust, and outside, in the growing dark. More footsteps were gathering. The real storm had only just begun. Asterisk. The cabin walls groaned like dying wood under the weight of the night. Smoke from the fire curled against the ceiling, mixing with the sharp scent of blood and steel. The old man stood in the center of the wreckage, rifle in his hands, the alien child clinging to him, glowing like a lantern in the storm. The two loyal aliens stood near the shattered door, weapons drawn, while the traitor's broken body lay crumpled against the wall, its eyes still burning faintly red even in death. But the silence did not last. Outside, voices rose deep, strange, and sharp as knives. The sound of footsteps spread through the forest, too many to count. Branches cracked. Stones shifted. An army was gathering. The man's gut twisted. He had fought before. He had bled before, but nothing like this. The leader alien glanced at him, golden eyes hard and sharp. They come, many. The man raised his rifle, his arm still aching from the wound he carried. His voice was rough but steady. Then we stand. They won't take him. The child's grip on him tightened. It whispered one word, soft but fierce, together. And then the storm broke. The first attackers hit the cabin like thunder, armored bodies slamming against the weak wood. The walls cracked, splinters flying. The loyal aliens roared and met them head-on, their blades clashing in sparks of fire and light. The old man fired his rifle, the deafening blast cutting through the night. One soldier fell, crashing through the doorframe. Another burst in from the window, but the man swung the rifle like a club, smashing it back. The cabin shook with every strike. Furniture split. Glass shattered. The fire roared higher as the battle turned the small home into a war zone. The man bled again, a blade slashing across his shoulder, but he didn't fall. He fought like a beast cornered, every strike for the child behind him. His blood painted the floorboards, but he would not let go. Not now. Not ever. The child cried out, its body glowing brighter than ever. The symbols across its skin lit the whole room, filling the air with strange power. The attackers faltered for a moment, blinded by the light. In that pause, the man struck again, the rifle blasting. The aliens beside him cutting down those who rushed forward. But for every enemy that fell, more poured in. Shadows filled the doorway, eyes burning red, weapons dripping with hunger. The sound of battle shook the earth itself. The man stumbled, falling to one knee. His vision blurred, blood dripping down his arm. The child rushed to him, placing its small, glowing hands on his wound. Warmth spread through him again, burning, healing just enough to keep him standing. He rose with a snarl, lifting his rifle once more. Not today, he growled. The battle raged. Sparks flew as steel clashed. The floorboards split, the walls crumbled, but still they fought. The loyal aliens held the line, their golden eyes blazing as they cut down traitors. The old man fought at their side, human strength against alien steel, his every breath a defiance. Then the child screamed. Its glow burst into pure white, blinding the attackers. The symbols across its skin pulsed like living fire, filling the cabin with a power no human or alien had ever seen. The enemy staggered, clutching their faces. Roaring in pain, the man shielded his eyes. But when he looked again, his heart nearly stopped. The child floated above the floor, its small body wrapped in light. Its eyes blazed silver, brighter than stars. Its voice filled the room, not weak, not trembling, but powerful, echoing like thunder. Enough. The word shook the walls. The enemies froze, their weapons clattering to the ground. For a heartbeat, silence returned. The man stared, blood dripping from his arm, his breath heavy. He had never seen anything so fierce, so otherworldly. The child lowered slowly. The glow fading, its body trembling with exhaustion. It collapsed into the man's arms, weak again, its eyes half closing. But the battle was not over. Outside, more shadows moved through the trees. Hundreds, maybe more. They had seen the light. They were coming. The leader alien turned to the man, its golden eyes blazing. Protector. Storm grows. Not just us. All sides come now. The man's chest tightened. This was no longer a small fight at his door. This was war. He looked down at the child, its small hands clutching his shirt, even in sleep. Its faint whisper reached his ears, soft as a breath. Don't. Leave me. The man's jaw clenched, his heart heavy, but firm. He would bleed, he would break, but he would not let the child fall. Outside, the forest roared with the sound of marching feet. The ground shook as if the earth itself feared what was coming, and then came a new sound. A knock-knock of soldiers, not of traitors, but sharp, heavy, and human. The man froze, rifle in his hands, blood dripping at his feet. He turned toward the door, his chest tight. Someone new had arrived. The knock on the door cut through the chaos like a blade. It was steady, heavy, and deliberate, not the wild pounding of the alien traders. Not the scraping claws of hunters in the forest. It was human. The old man froze, blood dripping down his arm, the rifle heavy in his hands. His chest rose and fell in rough breaths, his eyes darting from the door to the glowing child resting in his arms. The loyal aliens glanced at each other, their golden eyes sharp, uncertain. Even they seemed shaken by the sound. Another knock. 3 times. Confident. The man's throat tightened. No human should be here. His cabin was hidden deep in the forest. But he knew the truth. Someone had seen the light. Someone had followed the glow of the child's power. He set the child gently on the couch, though its small hand clung weakly to his shirt. "Don't go," it whispered, half asleep, voice trembling. "I'm not leaving," he whispered back, brushing its glowing hand aside. "I'll never leave." With his rifle ready, he stepped toward the door. The leader alien raised its blade in warning. "Danger," it said. The man ignored it. He reached for the handle, every nerve screaming. Slowly, he pulled the door open, and there they stood. Not aliens, humans, soldiers in dark uniforms. Helmets shining under the moonlight, rifles in their hands. Behind them, more figures emerged from the trees, dozens of men and women in formation. Their boots heavy on the forest floor. At their head stood a man in a long coat, his eyes sharp. His mouth twisted into a thin smile. The soldier leader spoke with a voice calm as steel. "You've done well, old man. You've found it for us." The old man's blood went cold. He didn't need to ask what it meant. His chest tightened with fury. He's not an it. He's a child. The leader's smile widened, but it did not reach his eyes. A child of power. Do you have any idea what you've been protecting? That thing could change the balance of worlds. With it, humanity won't have to crawl in the shadows anymore. We'll own the stars. The loyal aliens growled low, stepping forward, their golden eyes blazing. The soldiers raised their rifles instantly, 100 barrels aimed at the cabin. The man's heart pounded. He stood between 2 storms, aliens on one side, humans on the other. Both wanted the child. The child stirred, glowing weakly, its silver eyes fluttering open. It looked at the man, frightened, and whispered, "Home." His throat tightened. What was home now? Where was safety in a world that only wanted to use the child as a weapon? The human leader's voice cut the air again. "Step aside, old man. Give us the creature, and you can live out your days in peace. You've bled enough. You've done your part. Now hand it over." The man's grip on the rifle tightened. His eyes went to the child, so small, so fragile, yet carrying light brighter than any fire. It had trusted him. It had chosen him. It had called him father. Slowly, he stepped in front of the couch, placing himself between the soldiers and the child. His voice came rough, low, but unshakable. "You'll take him over my dead body." The soldiers shifted, ready to fire. The leader's smile faded. So be it. The air grew heavy. The aliens raised their blades. The humans raised their rifles. The child's glow flared, sensing the danger. The man's heart pounded in his chest. He knew this was the end. But if this was where he died, then he would die standing. He would die as protector. Then the child rose. Its glow burst into white fire, brighter than the sun, filling the forest, the cabin, the sky. Soldiers staggered, blinded, their rifles falling from their hands. The aliens fell to their knees, bowing low. Their golden eyes filled with awe. The child's small voice rose, but now it carried the strength of thunder. No more. The ground shook. The trees bent. The light swept across the forest like a wave. The red-dyed traders outside screamed, vanishing into ash. The human soldiers fell back, their lines broken. Fear in their eyes. The man shielded his face, the rifle clutched in his bloody hands. When the light faded, the soldiers were gone, retreating into the darkness. The aliens bowed deeper, their voices whispering words of reverence. The child collapsed into his arms. Weak again, its glow fading to a soft shimmer. Its silver eyes opened just enough to look at him. "Family," it whispered. The man's throat closed. His bloody hands shook as he held the small being close. Family, that was what it wanted. Not soldiers, not empires, not thrones. Just him. He looked at the aliens, still bowing, waiting for his word. He looked at the empty forest where humans had fled. He knew then what he must do. He was no soldier, no king. But he would fight if he had to. For this child, he would bleed. For this child, he would stand against armies. Because in the end, humanity was not about greed or power or conquest. Humanity was about courage, about love, about protecting what mattered most. And as dawn broke over the shattered forest, the old man stood in the doorway of his ruined cabin. The alien air in his arms, ready to face the galaxy itself.